Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. A jammed escalator, a failed teleprompter and a string of lies and boasts. We tell you all about Donald Trump's bizarre speech at the United Nations General Assembly, also his dramatic U-turns. He called Russia a paper tiger and he said Ukraine could take back its land. Is Trump giving up on talks with Putin? We'll discuss that. Also in focus, why the Indian rupee is falling even at a time when the US dollar is under pressure. What's the latest on India-US ties and why the focus is on the Indian diaspora in the US. Also, why New Delhi has accused Pakistan of bombing its own people at the United Nations. Meanwhile, a story of deepening defense ties with Africa, with India's Defense Minister Rajnath Singh visiting Morocco. In business news, Alibaba betting big on artificial intelligence. What does it mean for the global chip war? And in South America, will Donald Trump bail out Argentina? Also, the latest on the deadly typhoon that has battered East Asia. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Iran will never seek to build a nuclear bomb, declares its president at the United Nations General Assembly. This comes as the UK, France and Germany threaten to reimpose sanctions on Tehran. Iran has accused the European powers of working at the behest of the US. In India, protests turned violent in Leh. At least 4 people were killed and more than 70 were injured in the demonstrations demanding statehood for Ladakh. The protesters also torched the BJP office in Leh. Authorities have now banned all gatherings of more than 5 people in the city. Nepal's president issues an ordinance to amend the Voter Registration Act. It is to ensure that Gen Z voters can take part in the upcoming polls in March. Without the amendment, many first-time voters would have been excluded. This is a win for the youth, whose protests brought down the previous government. Malawi's president concedes defeat in last week's election. The dire state of the economy had dominated the polls. The president had made a legal bid to delay releasing the election results, but that petition was rejected by a court yesterday. And a portion of a busy road in Thailand's capital Bangkok caves, leaving a hole dozens of meters deep. It pulled down power lines, swallowed cars and forced people to evacuate. This incident drew a visit from the Prime Minister as well.
I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter. Climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Because of our tariffs, we are hitting them back, and we're hitting them back very hard. Hello, Madam First Lady.
The UN teleprompters are working perfectly.
These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much. And by the way, it's working now. It just went on. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
Bizarre, rambling, combative, weird, take your pick. Any of these words could describe Donald Trump yesterday. That's when he returned to the United Nations, his first General Assembly of his second term as president, and the setting was stark. Multiple wars, a global tariff conflict, rising rivalries, and a rampant climate emergency. The world needed some words of healing, some hope and optimism. Instead, it got Donald Trump. His arrival at the UNGA did not go well. After entering the building, Trump and the First Lady stepped on the escalator and on cue, it broke down.
President Trump, why did you cancel the meeting with Chuck Schumer?
If you believe in omens, this was not a good one. But Trump pushed on. He took the podium inside the General Assembly hall, and immediately there was another problem. The teleprompter stopped working, so Trump ad-libbed. He kicked things off on a lighter note.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much.
Not a bad start, but after that, things went downhill. Trump was allotted 15 minutes to speak. He ended up speaking for almost 1 hour. And forget hope or positivity, Trump leaned on complaints, boasts, and falsehoods. First, he launched into a MAGA speech. He said the US was the hottest country on earth. He touched upon the border and inflation. And then Trump turned to the world. He falsely claimed to have ended 7 wars. And once again, he added India and Pakistan to that list.
I ended 7 wars. And in all cases, they were raging with countless thousands of people being killed. This includes Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, the Congo and Rwanda, a vicious, violent war that was, Pakistan and India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, and Armenia and Azerbaijan. It included all of them.
Now, to be clear, this is totally false. Trump did not mediate between India and Pakistan. Pakistan requested India for a ceasefire. Same with the other deals. Egypt and Ethiopia were not at war. Kosovo and Serbia were also not at war. As for Israel and Iran, Trump himself joined that war. I don't think that counts as ending it. After this boast, Donald Trump turned to the United Nations. He complained that the United Nations was not helping him. And then he wondered aloud, what is the purpose of the United Nations?
What is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential. But it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war.
We get why countries in the global south would say this, but Donald Trump should not be complaining. His country has benefited from the United Nations in action. And after this complaint, Trump went down memory lane. He recounted bidding to rebuild the UN headquarters. You have to listen to this.
Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well. I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. It would be beautiful. I used to talk about, I'm going to give you marble floors. They're going to give you terrazzo. I'm going to give you the best of everything. You're going to have mahogany walls. They're going to give you plastic. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time.
You think you zone out at work? Well, look at Trump. After that weird detour, Trump turned to conflicts. As expected, he gave his full support to Israel. He also criticized his allies for recognizing Palestine. Some quick context here. The likes of France and Canada have recognized Palestine this week. They've recognized it as a separate state, the Palestinian state. Their goal is to put pressure on Israel, basically force Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel to end the war. But Trump questioned this approach. He said recognition was like rewarding Hamas. And then he turned to Ukraine. Once again, the US president took aim at India. He said India and China are the main funders of Russia's war. But as a footnote, he also blamed Europe.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. It's embarrassing to them, and it was very embarrassing to them when I found out about it, I can tell you that. But they have to immediately cease all energy purchases from Russia.
No mention of his own country, though. Since the war began, the U.S. has imported Russian goods worth $24 billion. The U.S. has imported from Russia $24 billion. This year alone, the Americans have imported Russian uranium worth $755 million. Yet who does Trump blame? India and China. And speaking of China, Trump dropped a casual attack on them. I say casual because it got buried by the other stuff. Trump said that the Wuhan virus was man-made, and that too as a bioweapon.
Just a few years ago, reckless experiments overseas gave us a devastating global pandemic. Yet despite that worldwide catastrophe, many countries are continuing extremely risky research into bioweapons and man-made pathogens. This is unbelievably dangerous.
That's a lot for one speech, let alone for your grand return to the UNGA. But wait, it gets worse. Because then came Trump's favorite topic, illegal immigration. He accused the United Nations of supporting an invasion at America's southern border. He also had a not-so-subtle warning for Europe. He said, your countries are going to hell. That's what he said to Europe. Listen in.
The number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Finally, Trump came to climate change. His own country has been ravaged by it. I'm sure you saw the California wildfires this year, but Donald Trump has rubbished all of it. He called climate change the biggest con job in human history, and as always, he reserved his special hatred for windmills.
It's climate change. Because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. The wind doesn't blow. Those big windmills are so pathetic and so bad, so expensive to operate. Then they have to be rebuilt all the time, and they start to rust and rot.
That wasn't a speech. That was an event. In between the rhetoric, we did get some policy insights, but more importantly, we got a sneak peek into Trump's worldview. It is dominated by two thoughts. Thought number one, a forever victim mentality. Just consider the teleprompter and escalator fiasco. The White House cried sabotage over it. They wanted the United Nations to investigate it. And surprise, surprise, it was not sabotage. Both were operated by American officials. Same with climate change and immigration. Trump feels that these are conspiracies created to hurt America. Of course, this is not true. If anything, the status quo has enriched America. So that's one thing to note about Trump's worldview. Number two, an isolationist approach. An almost anti-globalization push. And you cannot ignore the racist undertone here. Let me quote from what Donald Trump said. What makes the world so beautiful is that each country is unique, but to stay this way, every sovereign nation must have the right to control their own borders. Now, the border part, we can agree, no country wants unlimited immigrants, but Trump is curbing all sorts of immigration, his latest target being skilled workers. Just think about it. You're skilled, you're being hired by a US company, you're applying legally, you're ready to pay taxes and abide by the law, yet Donald Trump is trying to curb your entry. Why do you think that is? I'll let you draw your own conclusions. As for Trump's speech, same thing. For an outsider, it sounded bizarre, stark and weird. For an American, it must have been embarrassing. Donald Trump has always thrived on keeping people guessing, but his line on Ukraine was largely consistent. One week, he's praising Vladimir Putin. The next, he's hinting that Ukraine should give up land. According to him, the war had dragged for too long. A peace deal was necessary, and that meant a compromise. But then came New York. The US president landed in the city for the United Nations General Assembly, as you just saw, and suddenly his tone changed. He asked Ukraine to win back all the land. He called Russia a paper tiger. He said NATO should shoot down Russian jets and drones. It's a full 360-degree, a U-turn that nobody really saw coming. So what happened here, and what does it mean for Ukraine and the world? Let's start with the statements. On Tuesday, there was a meeting between Trump and Zelensky, the presidents of the US and Ukraine. They met on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, the UNGA. Zelensky came with a clear mission: to convince Trump that Ukraine could still win. And by the end of it, Trump did look convinced.
Well, the biggest progress is that the Russian economy is terrible right now. It's, as you know, it's crashing. And that, frankly, Ukraine is doing a very good job of stopping this very large army.
So Trump says Moscow was running out of steam and that this was the time to push back. Then he went on social media and posted this, I'm quoting, "I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form." And there's more. Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger. So Trump seems to be Ukraine's new cheerleader. He wrote that Ukraine could win back, and I'm quoting, all its original borders. He called Putin's Russia a paper tiger. He even hinted that Kiev could, and I'm quoting, Kiev could go further than that. What does that mean? What is further than that? Is he talking about Crimea? At this point, your guess is as good as mine. But the level of confidence that he showed in Ukraine surprised everyone, even Zelensky, who is now calling Trump a game changer.
Trump is a game changer by himself if he will be sure in Ukraine. And I think that he is more close now to this situation. And that's why, and between us, only Trump can. For today, we know some not too much players in the world who can be game changers. But he's the most closer to this.
Today, Zelensky spoke at the UN General Assembly, and even there, he did not forget to thank Donald Trump.
Yesterday, we had a good meeting with President Trump, and I also spoke with many other strong leaders, and together we can change a lot. Of course, we are doing everything to make sure Europe truly helps. And of course, we count on the United States. I appreciate the support we are receiving.
And this was not all. A reporter asked Trump about Russia violating NATO airspace. We've been telling you how Russian jets and drones have been spotted in NATO member countries. In the past, Trump called it a mistake. But yesterday, he was asked about the violations again, and this time his answer shocked everyone. Trump said NATO should shoot down Russian jets and drones if they violate the airspace of allies.
Mr. President, do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
Have you been briefed on the latest alleged drone incursions to Denmark? What do you think of that? And
Where are they?
Into Denmark, Copenhagen. Denmark is saying that there were some drones that shut down the airport, possibly Russian sabotage. What's your response to that? Will the U.S. have a material?
Well, I have no response until I find out exactly what happened. I know about it, but they don't know what happened. But we're going to find out very soon.
Poland's foreign minister was quick to react. He posted a simple message on social media that said, "Roger that." Meanwhile, NATO has also issued a warning to Moscow. It said that it will use all means to defend its airspace. Over the last few days, Russian drones and planes have breached the skies of Estonia, Poland and Romania. So Europe was already angry, and Trump's comments gave them cover to talk tough. And how is Russia reacting to this? To Trump calling them a paper tiger? Well, the Kremlin has obviously shot back. It said Russia was not a tiger, it was a bear.
Russia is not a tiger, it is a bear, and there was no such thing as a paper bear. So Russia is a real bear. And Russian President Vladimir Putin has on many occasions and with different emotions described our bear. You can remember it. So there is nothing here about being of paper.
But what explains Trump's U-turn? For months, he said that Ukraine might have to give up land. He even floated deals with Putin in Alaska, and now he says Kiev can take it all back. How did it happen? Did Zelensky finally get through to him, or did Trump lose patience with Putin? That is the question, and frankly, it may be a bit of both. Zelensky says Putin lied to Trump many times, and Trump hates being lied to. Well, maybe the US president finally understands that he is being played. So he's changing his stance. The question is this a strategic shift or just more Trump theater? And it's an important question to consider because while Trump's words are inconsistent, they have real-world consequences. Trump has just turned his position upside down. Ukraine is calling it a big shift. Russia is mocking it. NATO is taking notes and the rest of the world is watching closely because in this war, words can change realities. Now let's talk about the Indian rupee. It is under immense pressure. The rupee is hovering near record lows against the US dollar. $1 is worth almost 89 Indian rupees. And that's been the story this year, really. It's been a tough year for the Indian currency. In the month of May, the rupee became Asia's worst performing currency. At that time, it was trading near 85 to the dollar. Now it is close to 89. So this is a steeper fall, and it appears inconsistent with the bigger picture. Globally, the strength of the US dollar is being tested. At the same time, India remains the world's fastest growing major economy. So why is the Indian currency sliding? Tonight, we'll try to break it down for you. There are two parts to this story, the short-term pressures and the long-term challenges. In the short term, the tariffs have hit the rupee. The 50% Trump tariff, it has slashed the demand for Indian exports. When you export to the United States, you get paid in the US dollar. So fewer exports mean fewer dollars coming into India. And when the dollar inflow falls, the rupee weakens. So that's one factor. Now, beyond exports, two more factors are influencing the price of the rupee. One is the exodus of foreign investors from Indian stocks. They're pulling their investments out of India. Look at the numbers this year. So far, foreign investors have withdrawn more than ₹1 trillion this year. And every time these investors exit, they convert rupees into dollars. So that adds to the pressure. Plus, gold imports are also rising in India. Indian jewelers are importing more gold. The demand for the yellow metal has tripled in the run-up to this festive season. And every time you import gold into India, you use the US dollar to pay for it. That increases the demand for the dollar and it reduces the value of the rupee. So these are the short-term factors driving the rupee's fall. But there are deeper long-term challenges as well. Now we know that the Indian economy is looking strong. The GDP grew at 7.8% from April to June. That's the first quarter of this financial year. Very good numbers. Core sectors are expanding at double-digit rates. I'm talking about sectors like steel, coal, cement. These sectors are indicators of economic growth. And when they grow, it usually means that more investment is coming in areas like infrastructure. And all these sectors are looking good at this point. So if you join the dots, you'll see that India's economy is doing good. then why is the Indian rupee weakening? Because currencies do not move on growth numbers alone. They are influenced by several other factors like trade inflows, investor confidence, and global politics. Today, the outlook for India is more challenging. The exodus of investors is hurting confidence. Exports are already under pressure. And last week, Trump went after the H-1B visa. This has added another layer of stress. It impacts two critical pillars of the Indian economy, services and remittances. Services account for more than half of India's GDP. H-1B visas helped Indian companies win outsourcing contracts. They opened doors for foreign business deals. At the same time, Indian workers in the US sent money back home. In fact, remittances remain a major source of dollar inflows. But Trump's visa move has weakened both these channels. Services face new uncertainty, and remittances could take a hit. If these challenges stay, the rupee would remain under sustained pressure. India's Reserve Bank is trying to contain the fall. That's our central bank, the RBI. It has made interventions in the open market. It has tried to defend the rupee. But until investor confidence improves, the rupee will face pressure. Plus, more global uncertainty would make the RBI's job harder. So strong growth may not be enough. The policy swings in Washington and the chaos in global trade directly hurt the Indian currency. All the focus is on the UN General Assembly, but on the sidelines, a high-stakes tussle is also unfolding, the one between India and the US. After weeks of acrimony, there are talks. On Monday, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar met his counterpart Marco Rubio. Despite the tense backdrop, it was a positive meeting. Also in New York is India's Commerce Minister, that's Piyush Goyal. He is leading talks to strike a trade deal with the United States. And how is that going? Well, as complicated as you'd imagine. Just think back to April, when the trade talks started, they were straightforward. India had to address just one issue, the issue of tariffs. But since then, Trump has added new issues to the mix. First, the oil deals with Russia, and now the H-1B skilled visas. The last one, the visas, is a significant issue for India. More than half of our GDP comes from the service sector, as I just said, so naturally the government is worried. Reports say Piyush Goyal will take up this matter. He will seek easier market access for Indian professionals. Basically, we're looking at a package deal for goods and visas. And it's not a new demand. This is how India tends to negotiate. Look at the recent free trade deal with the UK. It sets aside 1,800 visas for skilled Indians. Same with the European Union. New Delhi is pushing for more visas from EU countries. Now, the same demand is being raised with Washington. The question is, will Donald Trump agree? Because immigration is a touchy subject for him. Last week, he targeted the H-1B visas. He raised the application fee for the program. Earlier, the fee was around $2,000. Now it is $100,000. And he's not done yet. A new White House proposal seeks to change the process. Let me explain. Right now, the H-1B uses a lottery system. The number of visas is capped at 85,000. So if there are more than 85,000 applications, there will be a lottery. And the lucky ones get approved. But Trump is proposing to change that. Instead of a lottery, he wants to prioritize wages. If your company pays more, you have a higher chance of getting the H-1B. And the logic is quite clear. Trump wants the cream of the H-1B applicants. He wants the high-paid AI researchers and chip designers. Why? A, because they will likely have more skill, and B, because that high wage will be spent in the US. But there's a downside too. Smaller companies may miss out. Around 5,200 such firms depend on the H-1B visa. The lottery system gave them a chance, but this new system will not. As for India, both these moves will be a jolt. But other countries could now cushion the blow, like Germany, for example. Their ambassador is inviting skilled Indians to work in Germany.
Our migration policy works a bit like a German car. It's reliable, it is modern, it is predictable. It will go in a straight line with no zigzags. And you don't have to fear a full brake at a top speed. We do not change our rules fundamentally overnight. Highly skilled Indians are welcome in Germany.
It all hinges on the trade talks. Trump has refused to give any concessions so far, yet India is negotiating in good faith. New Delhi is also trying to address one of Trump's main concerns, that of the trade deficit. The US runs a $45 billion deficit with India, and Trump is keen to reduce that. Yesterday, the Indian Commerce Minister addressed it. He said India will ramp up energy purchases from the US.
They are big importers of energy from across the world, including from the US. We expect to increase our trade with the US on energy products in the years to come. And being close friends, natural partners, our energy security goals will have a very high element of US involvement.
Do you know what's missing amid this turbulence? The vibrant Indian American community. Many of them eagerly supported Trump last year. Are they using that influence to sway him? Well, not from the looks of it. As we speak, a US delegation is in India. They held talks with Indian lawmakers in New Delhi. After the talks, Indian MP Shashi Tharoor reveals something. Listen to this.
I do want to stress that one of the points we raised was why the Indian American diaspora has been so silent about all of this. One of the congresswomen said that not one phone call has come to her office from any Indian American voter asking for her to support a change of policy. And this is something that is surprising, and that I think we all need to reach out to the Indian American population saying, if you care about the relationship with your motherland, then you also have to fight for it, speak for it.
So not a single Indian American reached out. The question is why? And would it make a difference? Well, for starters, let's not blur lines here. Indian Americans may have ethnic ties to India, but don't forget that they're American citizens now. You cannot expect them to have dual loyalties. Having said that, you can still exert influence. Other communities do it all the time. The Jewish Americans have significant influence over Donald Trump. They have pushed for closer Israel-US ties. Same with the Arab Americans. They pushed the Democrats in the last election, not over domestic issues, but over America's policy in Gaza. So the idea itself is not unprecedented. But would it work? There are 5.2 million Indian Americans in the United States. Surely that counts for something. And frankly, it's not the outcome that matters. It's your effort that counts.
Instead of coveting our territory, they would do well to vacate the Indian territory under the illegal occupation and focus on rescuing an economy on life support.
Imagine boarding a train and worrying not about delays, but about whether a bomb is waiting on the track. Imagine sleeping in your home and waking up to an airstrike or maybe a blast next door. Well, this is the daily reality for many people in Pakistan today, especially in two provinces of the country, Balochistan in the southwest and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in the northwest. Separated by distance, but linked by violent attacks. In Balochistan, a passenger train was struck by bombs. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, an overnight assault left dozens of people dead. Together, they show how Pakistan's security crisis is deepening. Yet, its leaders are busy elsewhere. Tonight, we'll tell you all about it, and we'll start with Balochistan, where an express train was hit by a bomb. This happened yesterday in the Mastung district. The name of the train is Jafar Express. It was bound for Quetta. When the bomb went off, 6 bogies came off the tracks and 1 carriage is said to have overturned. Passengers, including children, were trapped inside. Many of them sustained injuries. Around 270 people were on board that train. I'm sure the experience was horrifying for all of them. And this was not an isolated attack. Just hours earlier, another blast hit the same line. Thankfully, the damage was limited. But with the Jafar Express, the message was quite different, because this train has been repeatedly targeted. In March this year, it was attacked by militants. They took hostages and they issued warnings to the state. So the pattern is unmistakable. This train has become a symbol of the unrest in Balochistan. Now let's take a look at the northwest. And this story is even more disturbing. In the Tira Valley of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, at least 24 people were killed on Monday. Reports say the Pakistani Air Force carried out a strike. They used the Chinese-made JF-17 fighters, and it was the Air Force that killed Pakistani civilians in the dead of night. The next day, thousands of people poured into the streets. They protested against the airstrike and demanded justice for the victims. The Pakistani military is suspiciously silent. No statement, no explanation, not even a denial. Although some government authorities have tried a cover-up, they say it was an explosion in a Taliban hideout. The story has found no takers, and these two episodes in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa have exposed Pakistan's reality once again. It is fighting multiple wars inside its own borders. In Balochistan, trains are bombed. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, villages are hit. But rather than confronting these realities, Pakistan's diplomats are using international forums to blame India. So yesterday, India responded. At the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, Indian diplomat Kshitij Tyagi issued a sharp rebuke. He said Pakistan, and I'm quoting, Pakistan should focus on rescuing an economy on life support and stop bombing its own people. Listen to this.
Mr. Vice President, a delegation that epitomizes the antithesis of this approach continues to abuse this forum with baseless and provocative statements against India. Instead of coveting our territory, they would do well to vacate the Indian territory under the illegal occupation and focus on rescuing an economy on life support, a polity muzzled by military dominance, and a human rights record stained by persecution. Perhaps once they find time away from exporting terrorism, harboring UN-proscribed terrorists, and bombing their own people. I thank you.
The message was clear and unsparing. India held up a mirror to Pakistan, and every point was backed by facts on the ground. Pakistan's economy is collapsing, its society is splintered, and its military is killing its own people. And while the house is burning, Pakistan's Prime Minister and the Army Chief are busy traveling. They are in the US lining up to meet Donald Trump. The formal meeting in Washington happens tomorrow. Back home, the country struggles with violence and unrest. After exporting terror into India for decades, Pakistan is at war with itself. When the world looks at Africa, it sees resources, it sees markets, it sees strategic value. And that is why global powers are drawn to the continent. China is already there, so is Turkey and the West. But now India is also making its presence felt, although New Delhi is going with a different approach. Not just trade, not just infrastructure, but partnerships, including defense partnerships. India has opened its first defense plant in Africa, a facility in Morocco run by Tata Advanced Systems. It will produce India's indigenous armored vehicles, the same platforms already deployed by the Indian Army in Ladakh. Now they will be built in Morocco. From Ladakh to Casablanca, India's defense industry is going global. It is winning trust. It is becoming a reliable partner for Africa. Our next report has more.
A new chapter is being written in India-Africa defense ties. 4 decades, India has trained African officers and supplied equipment. Now, it is building defense hardware on African soil. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh inaugurated a new facility in Morocco. It is a nation in North Africa. The facility is operated by Tata Advanced Systems Maroc. It is the defense and aerospace arm of the Tata Group. At the ceremony, Rajnath Singh was joined by Morocco's defense minister. This is India's first defense manufacturing plant in Africa, and the first overseas defense plant by an Indian private company.
ये दोनों देशों के बीच बढ़ते हुए स्ट्रेटेजिक कन्वर्जेंस का एक सशक्त प्रतीक है। आज जब हम भारत के लीडिंग प्राइवेट सेक्टर डिफेंस एंटरप्राइज का स्वागत मोरक्कन की धरती पर कर रहे हैं, तो आज का दिन हमारे साझा संकल्प को और मजबूत कर रहा है।
Spread across 20,000 square meters, the plant will produce the wheeled armored platform. It is a modular 8x8 combat vehicle, built by Tata Advanced Systems and India's Defence Research and Development Organisation. It can serve as an infantry fighting vehicle. It can act as an armoured personnel carrier. And it can even transport the wounded. The vehicle is already in service with the Indian Army in Ladakh. And now Morocco will begin receiving its own deliveries next month. Production has started 3 months ahead of schedule. The plant is expected to turn out around 100 vehicles a year. It will employ nearly 350 people. And half of its components will soon be sourced locally.
20,000 स्क्वायर मीटर्स में फैली यह फैसिलिटी एक एडवांस्ड आर्मर्ड कॉम्बैट व्हीकल का निर्माण करेगी, जिसमें मोबिलिटी, प्रोटेक्शन और फायर पावर के नवीनतम गुण शामिल होंगे.
The facility is more than a factory. It is a statement of intent. India is signaling that its defense industry is ready to serve partners far beyond its borders. It is part of a broader vision.
मेक इन इंडिया के साथ हम मेक विद फ्रेंड्स के ऊपर भी काम कर रहे हैं, जिसके अंतर्गत विश्वसनीय साझेदारों के साथ मिलकर हम कटिंग एज टेक्नोलॉजीज का विकास और उत्पादन करेंगे और अंततः मेक फॉर द वर्ल्ड के अंतर्गत हमारे इनोवेशन का लाभ पूरी दुनिया के साथ साझा हो पाएगा.
Morocco is a gateway to Africa, to Europe, to the Atlantic. For Morocco, the plant creates jobs, technology transfer and self-reliance. For India, it opens the door to Africa's defense market. A market where China and Turkey are also active. The plant in Morocco was not launched in isolation. It followed the signing of a defense cooperation memorandum of understanding in Rabat. It comes as India is expanding its presence across Africa. In April, India co-hosted a naval exercise with Tanzania and 9 other African nations. In August, Indian warship turmoil trained with Morocco's flagship vessel Mohammed VI. India has also signed new defense pacts with South Africa and is increasing officer training and defense exports across the continent. The strategy is clear. India is offering reliable, cost-effective equipment. It is offering training and cooperation. It is building trust. India's armored platforms now carry a larger message. That India is ready to be a trusted global defense partner.
For years, Alibaba was China's Amazon, a sprawling e-commerce empire. It sells everything from t-shirts to tractors. But now it wants to be something else, the face of China's AI revolution. At its latest conference, Alibaba unveiled Qwen 3 Max. Think of it as Alibaba's answer to ChatGPT, and it's not just a chatbot. The model has over 1 trillion parameters. In simple terms, those are the tiny variables that help AI process data that make it capable of performing complex tasks. Because unlike most chatbots, Qwen 3 Max does not just wait for prompts. It has autonomous agent capabilities. It can take a goal from a human and act on it. Need a code written, a decision simulated, a workflow automated, Qwen 3 Max can plan the steps and execute them for you. And that too with minimal hand-holding. But why does it matter? In AI, size is not everything, but it does count. More parameters often mean more intelligence. So Qwen 3 Max is right up there alongside the likes of OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic. And Alibaba is backing the claim with benchmarks. It ran some tests, and here's what it found. Qwen 3 Max outperformed rivals in certain areas, rivals like Anthropic's Claude and DeepSeek. The Alibaba system beat them, or so they claim. Now, if true, it's no small feat. And all of this has turbocharged Alibaba's shares. Its Hong Kong listed shares jumped over 6%. US shares were 9.3% higher in pre-market trading. After all, the investors love a good growth story. Plus, e-commerce growth in China is slowing. So Alibaba's focus on AI makes them optimistic. And it's not just a new AI model. The tech giant is investing big in AI. We're talking $53 billion over the next 3 years. $53 billion in artificial intelligence. It is the largest tech investment of its kind in China. And that's not all. Alibaba is making its own chips too. AI chips. They were one of the biggest customers of NVIDIA. But then the US imposed chip restrictions. So Alibaba is now trying to cut dependence and make its own chips. And it fits into the global chip war. The US dominates today's AI world. It controls NVIDIA's chips, and China does not want to be left behind. Washington is tightening export restrictions on advanced processors. So Beijing is telling its tech giants, build your own future. Alibaba is creating its own chips and its own large language models. So are the likes of Tencent, Baidu, and Huawei. Because this is the future. The last decade was about who controls smartphones and social media. The next one is about who controls AI infrastructure, and the stakes are enormously high. AI will shape economies and indeed the whole world. The US has a head start, but China has scale and state support. So Alibaba's trillion parameter model is a strategic move. Beijing would love nothing more than for a Chinese company to rival OpenAI or Google. Having said that, there are still some problems. The first one is sanctions. Like I said, access to NVIDIA's top chips is restricted. Alibaba is trying to build its own. But until then, scaling AI will be harder. The second issue is hype. AI investments worldwide have sparked fears of a bubble. So will the returns match the spending? The third issue is execution. Moving from a shopping empire to an AI leader is easier said than done. The fourth is competition. There are others like Baidu, Tencent, and Huawei, and even startups like DeepSeek. They're all fighting for dominance. Despite all of this, can Alibaba pull it off? From shopping carts to supercomputers, it's a risky gamble. But it's a gamble with a massive upside. For now, the US still sets the pace in AI, but China is closing the gap fast, and with trillions of parameters, billions in funding, and a lot to prove, Alibaba has entered this race. We're waiting to see where it lands. Let's turn to Argentina now. In late 2023, they began a risky experiment. They elected an unconventional president to solve a crisis. His name? Javier Milei. Milei soon became the chainsaw president. His plan was to cut everything, cut jobs, cut subsidies, cut welfare funds. But 2 years later, is the experiment unraveling? Well, the markets are in turmoil. Look at the Argentine peso. Last month, it was trading at 1,300 against the dollar. This Monday, it rose to almost 1,480. Basically, the currency lost a lot of its value. And it's not good news for any country, especially not for a country that is sinking in debt. Simply put, Argentina's financial markets are collapsing. So what did President Milei do? Well, he turned to Donald Trump. There is talk of Trump helping out Argentina. He met Milei in New York yesterday. He promised political and financial support to him. But a bailout? Well, Trump was non-committal.
He's done a fantastic job, and I'm doing something that I don't often do. I'm giving a full endorsement to him. We just endorsed him for president. Scott is working with their country so that they can get good debt and all of the things that you need to make Argentina great again.
Are you going to help bail out Argentina, Mr. President?
Well, we're going to help them. I don't think they need a bailout. He's done a fantastic job.
This raises a couple of questions. Why is Trump keen on helping Milei, and how can he help? Also, what happened to Argentina's economic recovery? Well, the recovery is not going to plan. Initially, Milei did score some wins, but more recently, he has suffered setbacks. His group lost badly in a midterm election. His sister is tied in a corruption scandal, and some of his spending cuts were reversed. The result? The markets lost trust in his ability. They felt President Milei would soon become a sitting duck, which is why the peso crashed. But the worst could be yet to come. Another midterm election is slated for October. If Milei loses that, the markets could crash further. Enter Donald Trump. Why is he helping Milei? Well, there are political and strategic reasons. Politically, Trump and Milei are aligned. They're both conservative right-wing leaders. Milei has close ties with Trump's MAGA camp. Trump even called Milei his favorite president. So naturally, he wants to help. And strategically, Argentina is key. It is one of the biggest countries in South America. It is also home to crucial rare earths. In recent years, China has made inroads into Argentina. But Javier Milei has tried to reduce Chinese influence. So it's in Trump's and America's interest to help him. The question is how? Trump's Treasury Secretary has listed out 4 methods. Number 1, the US government could buy Argentine bonds. Number 2, it could give direct loans to Argentina's central bank. Number 3, a $20 billion currency swap. And number 4, buying up Argentina's government debt. All these measures are on the table. But Trump is not calling it a full bailout, and understandably so. The US is going through a cost of living crisis, so bailing out a foreign country won't play well. Plus, it does not exactly scream America first. The Democrats are already opposing it. Listen to what a senator said, and I'm quoting. At a time when Americans are struggling to afford groceries, it is deeply troubling that the president intends to use significant emergency funds to inflate the value of a foreign government's currency and bolster its financial markets. So the decision won't be popular, yet Trump appears keen to do it, and it could be a lifeline for Javier Milei in Argentina. The country has $42 billion in debt. They must repay around $10 billion in the first half of 2026. Both the IMF and the World Bank have extended help, but those come with conditions. Javier Milei cannot let the peso go beyond a certain level. When the currency crashed, his government had to defend it. Last week alone, they sold $1 billion in foreign reserves. This is money Argentina needs to repay loans. They cannot afford to use it to prop up their currency. And that is why Trump's role is key. With the US, with American help, Milei can defend the peso. He can carry on with his chainsaw economics. It's pretty clear that Washington will help Argentina. The only question is how much help. Super Typhoon Ragasa, it has brought Asian megacities to a standstill. Earlier this week, Ragasa barreled through islands in the Philippines. Yesterday, it devastated Taiwan, leaving at least 17 people dead. And today, it has battered Hong Kong and southern China. Millions of people have been evacuated. The storm has damaged homes, uprooted trees. The waves have gushed inside buildings, sweeping people off their feet. Ragasa is the world's most powerful cyclone this year. But what's behind it? And is the worst over yet? Here's a report.
After devastating Hong Kong, Taiwan and the Philippines, the deadly super typhoon Ragasa has made landfall in China. Typhoon Ragasa is the world's most powerful tropical cyclone this year. Earlier this week, it battered the northern islands in the Philippines, destroying homes, uprooting trees, affecting at least 700,000 people, and leaving at least 9 people dead. Then Ragasa barreled through the mountainous regions of Taiwan. Torrents of water rushed through the streets, sweeping cars away, leaving homes inundated, and forcing people to shelter on higher floors. A natural dam holding back a lake collapsed, unleashing 68 million tons of water and flooding the nearby town. At least 17 people have died and several others are still missing. Earlier today, Typhoon Ragasa brought financial hub Hong Kong to a standstill. Water has ferociously rushed into buildings, submerged roads and residential properties. Strong winds blew away parts of infrastructure and knocked down hundreds of trees across the city.
It's completely gutted right through the whole bottom floor. We took everything out, we put up everything against the windows, barricaded it, but I think when Mother Nature calls, there's not much you can do.
I was downstairs when the flood happened, as I was going to pull down the iron overhead door. The water came over right after I secured the overhead door. It was really fast.
Hong Kong and Macau, which is a nearby casino hub, cancelled schools and hundreds of flights. Many businesses remained closed, but the Hong Kong stock market stayed open. This is a shift from the city's usual typhoon season trend. So this year, as typhoon trading persisted, bankers packed into luxury hotels. But waves of water crashed through the doors of hotels, sweeping people off their feet. Across all of Hong Kong, at least 90 people were injured.
By the time I got upstairs, it was already too late. I had to quickly run up to the second floor, and the water had already reached my chest. Very fast. You really can't imagine how quickly it came. You don't have time to think about where to run or what to do. We've received typhoon and earthquake alerts on our phones, but we never thought it would happen so quickly.
After battering Hong Kong, Typhoon Ragasa has made landfall in southern China, specifically the powerhouse Guangdong province, where nearly 2 million people have been evacuated. Businesses and schools have remained shut in at least 10 cities across the south of the country. Residents in high-rise buildings have been ordered to evacuate. China has issued its highest red wave warning. This is the first time that such an alert has been triggered this year. From here on, the typhoon is expected to ease. But as Asian megacities scramble to protect themselves, Ragasa has only reiterated what experts have been saying for years. Climate change is making storms of this scale not only more common, but also more powerful. And without climate action, this is only the beginning.
It is part exciting and part anxiety-inducing. I'm talking about retirement. Whether you're looking forward to it or not, it is a big change and it takes years, sometimes decades of planning, not just for you, but also for policymakers. Governments around the world spend a lot of time thinking about retirement, and they have to because they have some pretty big questions to answer, like who should retire, why, how, and perhaps most importantly, when. When should people retire? Different countries have different standards and different systems which decide where they draw the line and set the retirement age. Tonight, we will look at Italy's approach. They have linked the retirement age to life expectancy, meaning if people live longer, the age of retirement moves up. It is reviewed every 2 years. Italy's current retirement age is 67. Now, for context, this is relatively high. The European average is 64 years. That is the average retirement age in Europe, 64 years. In Italy, it is 67 today. But given this system, it keeps changing because people are living longer. So the retirement age is due to rise in 2027, and most Italians are not happy about this. Italian labor unions want the retirement age to freeze, and now the government is considering it. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is backing the freeze. But critics say this will hurt the economy. If the retirement age is frozen, Italy will owe more money than it earns. By 2031, Italy's debt could reach 139% of its GDP because from an economic standpoint, it makes sense to keep pushing the retirement age. And not just in Italy, but almost everywhere. After all, people are living longer the world over. Soon, more people will leave the workforce than they enter. The UK will reach that point by 2029. Brazil will reach there by 2035. India by 2048. More people retiring than entering the workforce. 2048 for India. When fewer people enter the workforce and more people retire, it hits the state coffers. Because people who retire get a pension from the state-backed funds. Yet, retirement age is a global hot-button issue. Italian unions want it frozen. Critics say Meloni is backing it to placate the people, to avoid what happened in France and Germany or China and Taiwan, where pushing the retirement age led to massive protests. Meloni wants to avoid this in Italy. After all, 2027 is also the year when Italy heads to polls. But what is the ideal solution? What is a good age to retire? Honestly, no one knows. Research does not have a concrete answer. It says retirement age is almost always a rough judgment. And this judgment varies. There are several factors to look at. Per capita income, Birth rate, retirement plans, taxes, cost of living, even the healthcare infrastructure. There is a lot to consider. And few are on the same page. In countries like India and South Korea, the retirement age is about 60. In countries like Iceland and Norway, the retirement age is 67. It is the same in Denmark. But it will be raised to 70 by 2040. That's the highest in the world. And there is no one size fits all. Generally, retirement age in countries is about three things: economics, demographics, and human dignity. But the complications aside, let's zoom in and ask, when should you retire? Again, there is no magic number. It comes down to your wallet, your dreams, your safety net, and your health. There is no perfect age to retire because retirement is not just a date on a calendar. It is a crucial choice, not just about ending your work life, but also about starting your next chapter. America is waging a war against drugs, but the drug is on its pharmacy shelf. In fact, it's a painkiller called Tylenol. This week, President Donald Trump warned pregnant women about it, suggesting that it could be linked to autism, and that too without offering any scientific evidence. The internet responded, as it always does, by turning panic into memes. One person noted, "Guns hurt kids too. But those are still fine, thanks." Because in America, the biggest threats to children are painkillers. Take a look. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. A statue of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein pops up near the US Capitol. Argentinian football fans clash with Brazilian police during the South America Cup quarter-final. And an entire medieval church was lifted 46 feet to make way for an office building in London. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1932, B.R. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi agreed upon the Pune Pact. They had sparred over the allocation of separate electorates for Dalits. Ambedkar was in favor of it, but Gandhi thought it would divide the society. So the two leaders reached an agreement. The Pune Pact scrapped the idea of separate electorates for Dalits, but it increased the number of reserved seats for them. We are leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
Stands at $36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktoren,
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka karjo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Fiskali radikali.
Japanese,
4 兆ドル以上も
Portuguese,
por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select the language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.